Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for our Q2 edition of Braintrust Live, a gathering of the Braintrust community focused on helping you elevate your career in Web3. My name is Barbara Mighdoll. I'm the VP of Marketing at Freelance Labs, one of the builders of Braintrust, and I will be your guide throughout the event today. If you just joined us, please take a moment now to fill out a quick poll, which you'll see right next to the comments box so we can get to know you a little bit better. And for those of you who are new to the network, Braintrust is the first decentralized talent network connecting highly skilled tech talent with the world's leading brands and most interesting startups, including many Web3 projects. And we have a little video that we're going to kick off with right now. What a great way to kick off the morning. I can feel the momentum building. I see all of you here so excited to have such a large audience today. And we're just getting started building Braintrust. On today's agenda, we want to help you land your dream job in Web3. So we'll be sharing tips and hearing stories from people who made the transition. We have a great lineup of speakers. We have Braintrust co-founder Gabe Luna-Ostaseski here. We have hiring leaders from Harmony, ConsenSys, and Skale. And then a few contributors from the Braintrust community who are going to share their stories of how they're building Web3. Now, if you have any questions today, please drop them directly in the chat, not in the Q&A tab, so that all of our speakers can see them when you have that question. We are going to be starting off today with a contest, and we have multiple contests and giveaways throughout the event, so stay tuned. Our first one is a live event bounty, a click to tweet. Next slide, please, with the directions. So this is a very easy bounty. All you need to do is click the link that we're dropping in the comments. During the event, we're going to review all of the incoming tweets and select 5 winners who will receive 10 Braintrust at the end of the event. So go ahead and click that now. Super easy way to start the day and your opportunity to earn Braintrust. All right, let's take a look at who is here today. So what excites you most about Braintrust? About 60% of you are very interested in accessing high-paying jobs and interesting jobs. And then about 20% of you are interested in the opportunity to contribute to building the network. Let's look at the next question. Where in the world is everyone from? Oh, we have a really great mix. We have about 40% coming from North America, 20% from Europe, 20% from Asia, 10% from Africa, and then another 5% from South America. All right, everyone. One other question that we did ask as well is what describes your current work status? We have about 75% of people here are working in Web 2 and want to transition into Web 3. Well, you found yourself in the right spot today. 20% of you are already working in Web 3. That's awesome. Please drop where in the comments right now. And then about 80% of people own crypto, which is awesome. You know, when we started doing our Braintrust live events, over a year ago, that number was a lot worse. It's great to see that number continue to grow. All right, so we're going to move on to our very first session, which is hearing directly from Gabe on how he went from being a Web 2 founder to a Web 3 founder, sharing his My Web 3 story. So Gabe, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Hey everyone, great to see people from all around the world, so many different walks of life, and truly a global community here. So wonderful to be with you this morning. Thanks for spending some time with us all throughout the world. So I wanted to share a quick background on myself and like what brought me into Web3. So since we're all, I think, mostly freelancers, independent workers, I always joke that I've been unemployable since I was 18 years old. That's actually when I started my first business. It was a house painting company, and I went door to door and knocked on doors to sell house painting jobs over the course of the summer, and then was able to pay my way through school doing that. I quickly figured out that I didn't want to run a house painting company for the rest of my life. And transitioned that into starting a marketplace for home services, basically connecting homeowners with contractors. And that was essentially the beginning of my Web 2 journey. And I was the co-founder of that company, helped to build it up to be the largest in North America. And then we sold the company, and I started investing and advising other Web 2 marketplaces. So I helped a company called Uber, which many of you know, Thumbtack, Better Doctor, all in all about 45 of these marketplaces, these two-sided marketplaces that I refer to as Web 2. And my observation in doing that was that while these Web 2 networks, especially in the gig economy, promised autonomy and freedom and voice or control to the actual users. And so you saw like the drivers hating Uber, you saw the Dashers hating DoorDash. And what became apparent to me was like, I was kind of part of the problem and I wanted to be part of the solution. And at the time, this is kind of 2017, 2018, you were seeing the emergence of what was called tokenization, and you were seeing the emergence of smart contracts. This is kind of like the early days of Ethereum. And what I started to get really excited about was this idea of like, what if instead of a central corporation running a marketplace or a network, what if it was actually, owned and operated and governed by the actual users? And I thought that was like a really, really disruptive thing. And I really love the idea of putting power and value back into the workers' hands. And so that's kind of like the original inspiration for starting Braintrust. So at the time, there was no Web3, right? Like this was just like the land of crypto. And in 2018, when we started this was kind of like crypto winter. So I tried to describe like, what is Web3? And I think a really helpful framework is, if you look at Web 1.0, it was all about kind of like putting an encyclopedia on the web, like essentially reading and writing, putting that information onto the web. Then came Web 2, and like the core innovation was essentially interaction. You can now read and write and interact, and that gave way to all of these kind of Web 2 networks that we know today, Uber, Airbnb, etc. And I think that the fundamental innovation in Web 3 is this concept of like programmable ownership. And so now you can read, you can write, you can interact, and you can actually own and govern the networks that you participate in. And personally, like I think that one core innovation is what will define the next 20 years of technology and the way in which networks and marketplaces are built and also how they are governed. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done here in Braintrust. Just in a short couple of years, we're just getting started. But I thought maybe what we could do is share just a little bit about Braintrust, and for those of you that are new, and also talk a little bit about like how it started, how it's going. So what is Braintrust? Braintrust is a decentralized talent network. And what does that mean? It means that there's no central corporation that owns and governs the Braintrust network. The sole unit of ownership and governance and control is actually the B-Trust token, which many of you are familiar with. And that was a pretty crazy idea back in 2018 when we first started this. But in the very, very short period of time, talent earnings have crossed $60 million on the platform. We have 52,000 talent from 157 countries that have joined the Braintrust network and have an opportunity to control and govern the network. We have 3,200 plus jobs from companies like Nike, Citibank, Deloitte, Airbnb, Twitter, Facebook, Goldman Sachs, Nestle, TaskRabbit, Salesforce, WeWork, Atlassian, Ford. literally the most well-respected brands in the world. And what we're trying to do is essentially enable talent from around the world to work directly with these brands, because traditionally you wouldn't be able to kind of access those kinds of high-paying ongoing opportunities in other networks. And lastly, one of the huge milestones that I think we achieved as a community is this concept of governance. And that was a pretty nuanced idea in the past, but I think a really tangible example of this is that the community proposed, voted on, and actually developed the fee converter, which has now converted 1.3, since just the end of January, has converted $1.3 million of client fees from these big enterprises to purchase 380,000 Braintrust tokens on the open market and send them to the Braintrust DAO to fund community development. And that's something I think that we can all be really proud of. And it's kind of the foundation for this network, which is that this is owned and governed and developed by this incredible community of folks from around the world. So this has been enormous progress. I want to take some time to just kind of acknowledge, of course, the core team that has been working on this tirelessly for these past few years. But in addition, there's some other folks and community members that I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge. So there's currently 7 core development nodes that are building the Braintrust network. Each node has full-time hires. Freelance Labs has less than 40 people working for it. So it was the original developer and it's currently the largest developer on the Braintrust network. We build with the community. So every line of code, everything that you see on the website has been built by the community on the Braintrust platform. And I think that is incredible. So this has been built by the community, for the community, and owned and governed by the community. And I think we're the first to really do that. In addition, we have incredible ambassadors, incredible community members that have been here since the very beginning. You all know who you are. And I just want to express my gratitude for all of your work helping to shape this vision and helping to make this like crazy idea become a reality. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your work, all of your effort, and all of the energy that you continue to pour into making this user-owned future a reality. So let's talk a little bit about some of the latest developments on the network over the last couple of months. We added a new node called Kunai, which is a financial services node to help make a big push into the financial services category. So we expanded the nodes. Next, we added a bunch of Web3 partnerships to help you get into Web3. So we added partnerships with ConsenSys, Harmony, Dfinity, Decentrology, SiftChain, Skale, Provenance, Rabbit Hole, and many more. We also launched a Web3 talent directory with thousands of people joining to be notified about the most updated Web3 jobs. And then yesterday, we made a huge announcement to help talent around the world. We announced a beta program to offer healthcare benefits to freelancers and saving them 20 to 50% off of market exchange rates. And this for us is a huge milestone because what it does is it helps to reduce a lot of that risk in freelancing, especially for those in North America where there's not government provided healthcare or benefits. And that our belief is that will enable a whole new category of people to make the leap into becoming their own bosses and working for themselves, doing work they love on their own terms. And our intent here is to really help people from around the world to be able to make the jump, run their businesses, and do the work that they love. So those are just a few of the developments in the past couple months. Like I said, we're just getting started, and we need more able hands, community members raising their hands to help us build the future. And so please get involved. There's lots of ways to get involved in Discord. There's ways to get involved in our grants programs. There's ways to get involved in bounties. And as we continue to scale, those opportunities will only continue to grow. So thank you so much for joining us today and helping us to build the future of work that benefits the talent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Love hearing your story about your transition. And of course, all of those updates for the community should definitely help make your transition as well a bit easier into Web3. So as promised, there are plenty of opportunities throughout the next 40 minutes to continue earning prizes and Braintrust. So we are going to start with a Braintrust trivia question. So the way that this is going to work, everyone get ready to type. I'm going to switch the slide, and on the next slide, there is a question. I'm going to read the question out loud. The first person to drop in the comments the correct answer will win a Braintrust swag kit. So everyone get ready, and we're going to switch the slide in now. So Braintrust recently announced what new job type coming soon to the network? Let's see what people think. All right, I think we have a winner here. Hold on, let me scroll up. Everlow, grants. That is the correct answer. So grants are being added for Braintrust to become the one-stop hub for talent to get hired in Web3. That means we now have a bunch of different opportunities for you to get involved with Web3 projects, whether that's through grants or part-time roles or full-time roles. So you are going to win a Braintrust swag kit. We will be dropping a note to you after the event. All right, moving on. So I'm very excited to introduce our panel for today, led by Shirley Yang. And Shirley, I'm going to have you and the panelists join us up on stage here and go ahead and get started. Let's talk about how to land your dream job in Web3.
Awesome. Thank you, Barbara. Hello, everyone. It's so great to see you. My name is Shirley Yang. I've been a Braintrust contributor since early 2020. I'm excited to jump into our panel with Web3 hiring partners from Skale, ConsenSys, and Harmony. This is why you are here, right? So panelists, without further ado, please introduce yourselves. Tell us your background, how and why you transitioned from Web2 to Web3. Just like Gabe talked about his Web3 story. Jack O'Halloran from Skale, let's start from you.
Hey, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. So I'm Jack O'Halloran, the CEO of Skale Labs. I have Skale, by the way, is the core team behind the Skale network. Skale is a layer one modular hybrid blockchain network. What that means, there's many, many blockchains that make up the Skale network that all share security, as opposed to being a one single blockchain. So it adds a lot of capacity and throughput and zero gas fees for end users. It does a lot of great things to help enable the user experience for Web3. So I got into this space because I was a Web2 founder before. I'd started numerous enterprise software companies. I was starting companies in machine learning and AI. Prior to doing that, I was starting companies in mobile. In 2017, I was actually working on starting another company. And that's when I discovered Ethereum. I'd known about, I'd been a Bitcoin holder for a long time and a big believer in decentralized currency. But when I understood finally what smart contracts could do, a light bulb went off in my head, and I realized that we're at this point of business model innovation. And the trifecta, I call it the trifecta. Working in Web3 allows you, one, to do something really fun and innovative. Number two, to actually do something good for the world. You bring power and profit and governance and to users and workers, and you take that from centralized entities or small groups of control. It does great things for the world. The last piece is that you can do good for the world and have fun and make money. It's a very profitable space. So it's a win-win-win. So for me, when I discovered Ethereum, it was a no-brainer to start a company in this space.
Thank you, Scott. Would you like to go next?
I would just echo Jack's speech. That was well put, man. Everything you said was great. Inspired. Yeah, my history with blockchain, I've been in the space since around 2016 is when I was exposed to it. It started actually with Bitcoin and then but moved quickly towards what Ethereum was. And I think I came out of the traditional corporate sectors, working at Microsoft Game Studios, and had a taste of what decentralization might look like at that time. And then I was introduced. I'm from the West Coast, out in the Seattle, Washington area. So I got exposed to what blockchain was. There's actually a project that was being built out at the Walt Disney Company. It was more of a hybrid blockchain at the time. And it kind of gave me kind of a realized epiphany that this is not just a fad, that this actually could change and disrupt the way we do things. And so that's kind of what led me down this path. Similar to Jack, just the light bulb went off and I wanted to be in it and get involved. So I too started a consulting business with a friend of mine who is actually a head of Truffle right now. And we actually end up working for ConsenSys since then. So as many of you are aware, ConsenSys is building a lot towards the Ethereum ecosystem. A lot of our tools are being leveraged by some of my colleagues in their companies. And so we want to continue to drive and evolve the tools for developer experience as well as the user experience, so we can get more blockchain adoption, both on the enterprise level all the way down to the individual user. So happy to be here and excited to answer some questions.
I'm hearing a theme here: entrepreneurs introducing blockchain more widely to the world. Jack Chan from Harmony, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Very impressive backgrounds from Jack Halloran and Scott. Well, my background is I was involved in technology since really young. As many, maybe some of you are as well. I came from a more traditional Web2 background. Worked in tech, Fortune 500 companies in Silicon Valley. And I learned a lot about scaling and about Web2. And my day-to-day was all about like, hey, how can we make things go faster, more affordable to run, and more resilient to failures, right? So that's a very Web2 mentality that I came in with. And then when I was running in between meetings, I was a people manager at a company here. A DevOps engineer pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Jack, you gotta learn about this thing called the world computer." I was scratching my head. It's like, what are you talking about? And that was Ethereum. And I remember that was back in late 2016 or 2017, I forget now. So then I began being interested in it, started reading it nightly, was very religiously listening to podcasts. And I'm not a speculator of crypto, but you have to, if you want to try out a Web3 career, you have to put some money into it and see the fluctuations. Otherwise, you might not be paying attention to Web3 as much. So I did that a little bit. Your heart could pound, value could go up and down. But I was continuing to learn about it. I ran like node operations around proof of stake in my what I call 5 to 9 job. So that happened for like a few years. I did scale that 5 to 9 job to a pretty sizable operation. And one of the node operations I ran for, these are called something called proof of stake node operations, where you are rewarded for running a legitimate service that would help with the blockchain. So I did that from that angle, and one of them was Harmony. And I knew of the Harmony team from very early on. I joined the foundation less than a year ago, and it became a really natural fit, starting with the engineering side of things. And now I'm helping with partnerships and grants.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the background. It gives us a lot of context for the 3 different projects. And, a lot of times the projects, especially early stage projects, is a mirror of the founder, of the founding team. So great to see where you came from. So let's talk about roles, audiences. Let's see who we have here today. Can you just type in your role? Are you an engineer, designer, product manager? Who are you? Type in the chat so we all know who you are. And panelists, while they are inputting their roles, tell us, who are you hiring for, right? So are you only looking for engineers? Is engineering a focus? If it is, that's fine. Are you more open to design, product? And what skill sets are required for a Web3 project compared to Web2 companies based on your experience? Jack, would you like to go?
I'll go first. I think we're all waiting. I'll go for it. So the first thing I want to say is, so Skale is an open source effort, okay? And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about Braintrust, and also it's really fun because I'm part of the Braintrust community. I'm the founder of Skale, but I can be part of other decentralized communities. And I love Braintrust because it actually helps the full circle of open source come together. Now, one, there's so much effort and value of Braintrust going into the major businesses that have huge budgets that are hiring. But we're here today to talk about getting talent building in the open source world. And Skale in particular, we want people to help contribute to the protocol, help contribute to testing the protocol. We need people to support with QA. We want people to help build integrations. We want people to help build user experience widgets to move between the different chains. So we have many roles from QA to integration engineering to design and user experience that we'll be putting out on the platform. And our goal with Skale is not to have it, it's already a very big open source effort with over 1,000 people working on it. But we want to bring more in, and there's no better way to do that than Braintrust, in my opinion.
Yeah, I say for us, we're hiring across the board. I'm aware of what the recruiters have kind of explained. I mean, we just closed a Series D, and a lot of the money's been allocated towards the increase of hiring. I think we have over 1,000 headcount. So that's a lot of positions. And, a lot of them are going to be engineer, but definitely there's a huge emphasis on, particularly around product marketing managers and PMs. We've noticed that we're always going to need engineering support, and even down to the startups, you see that often it starts out with engineers. But when it comes to go-to-market, I think that's really essential if you want to continue to evolve and scale and grow and kind of contribute to the greater ecosystem of Web3. And so that has been a huge emphasis. We brought on a new CMO that just joined our company. So he's going to kind of be spearheading and growing the marketing team. So I'd say that's been a huge emphasis. And then, a lot of the roles within engineering, it's not all of them are going to be blockchain. I get that question a lot. Do I need blockchain experience? Like we have ConsenSys NFT. So having experience with Solidity is always a great thing, and using our tools like Truffle. But generally, we have our typical full stack positions. I mean, we're big fans of Go and Rust. I know there's like 5 developers in the world who know Rust apparently, but it's a challenge we're willing to take on. And then JavaScript, TypeScript is kind of the tech stack that we typically look at around what we look for with our devs. But yeah, outside of that, I think really just having the zealousness of building, not just as this is a job. I think one of the things we look at is what's really important is when folks have done their due diligence, you don't need the blockchain experience, but you've shown that you've taken the time to learn about it. A lot of great resources on YouTube. I know Braintrust has provided a lot of great resources around what is blockchain, and that kind of zealousness is very appealing to us. And so that's certainly going to help when it comes to your hiring opportunities. But yeah, definitely very much across the board. I'll let you finish up, Jen.
Very similar to both Jack and Scott here is that Harmony was built about 4 years ago, and the foundation is a layer 1 blockchain, similar to what Ethereum is. And it's also coincidentally, a Ethereum virtual machine compatible chain. In the spirit of decentralization, our hiring model is very similar. So the core team is actually really small, even though, sure, Harmony has been around for quite a bit. It's one of the top 100 in the coin market cap, but our core team is like 25 people. For a multi-billion-dollar market cap company to be 25 people ask like, how is this possible? The way that we do that is, like I said, in terms of the spirit of decentralization, a layer 1 platform is like you're building for Linux operating system, right? So we did rely on a lot of contributors. Again, Harmony is very similar to Skale, where it's an open source project, and many people can contribute that way. But then, what's your incentive to contribute into that when you have, a family to feed, or you need basic living needs, right? So we hire in a way with partnership with Braintrust, with full-time contractors, what we call fellows, which are full-time team members that are that can independently also join other initiatives through decentralized autonomous organizations, or what we call DAOs. And we also have a lot of contributors. For example, if there's like anyone that needs to be boots on the ground in a certain area for event operations, there's contributors that can help us with that. And also partners. Harmony has recently launched like a really huge grant program, $300 million worth, that would help bootstrap a lot of companies that want to build on Harmony. So you could also look for opportunities to work within those ecosystem builders that's building on Harmony as well. So I wouldn't limit myself to think about joining a Web3 foundation that builds on a layer 1 level. Think about like building applications, like practical use cases in, it could be a mobile app for social, like a new Twitter, could be like a payment system, or could be any other like Web2 practical use cases that's being built on a platform like Harmony. Yes, from Harmony Foundation itself, we are hiring heavily on the protocol layer because we are making advancements that could be better if it's at the beginning, a more centralized model. But we can see a year, 2 years from now, there could be teams spinning out of Harmony to continue building for Harmony while we work on the protocol layer. We also are hiring on the back end, where we're trying to scale our node operations, front end for a few projects around how do we have better visibility on what the blockchain is working on, some tags, or like on something called the Explorer, we can explore blockchain and the historical transactions that happen. There's also like wallets that we're building. So we're hiring throughout engineering, design, some product road mapping, and very recently, we realized Marcom is a very, very important element as well. There's a lot of improvements around communicating out, like a lot of the projects that's being built outside or around the Harmony ecosystem, as well as within Harmony. So with a partnership with Braintrust, we're able to scale and start hiring quite a number of people, not just in the engineering end, but we're starting to open up to Marcom as well. So yes, we are just hiring across the board, and that's just so many opportunities within Web3. I truly encourage everybody to start learning about the space and seeing how you can contribute.
Thank you. And this content is really important. So I just want to quickly underscore what I heard here for the audiences. Two main things that I took away. One is the skill sets are not necessarily different, right? Web 2 and Web 3. You don't have to have Solidity. You don't have to be a blockchain engineer to work in Web 3. I know a lot of us are just transitioning into Web 3, are a little trepidatious or not sure whether or not you have the chops for it. But you heard Scott, Scott has a recruiting background and he's from ConsenSys. They're hiring thousands of roles. Basically, you talked about enthusiasm, having the zealousness, right? More kind of like who you are, foundation fabric as a talent versus what skills specifically in blockchain or crypto that you have, right? So that's really interesting to hear. And across the board, all our panelists talked about not just engineering. I heard Marcom. I mean, from Braintrust, my experience also, yeah, you know what? Content is so important, right? And to get quality content, guess what? We want people who have had experience in creating beautiful Web 2 content and apply that into Web 3. So just so happen, Braintrust Network, we have so many talented UI, UX designers, product designers who have that fundamental skill set that can apply their skill sets from Web 2, working with other enterprise companies, to Web 3 projects to make it even more sophisticated, right? So that's really great to hear. So that's the skill set piece. The other piece that I heard was the roles are non-traditional. You don't have to be a full-time W-2 employee per se. You don't have to be a part-time contractor. There are different nomenclatures, especially in Harmony. The 300 million grant project. I saw your landing page, very impressive. There's so many different types of roles. You could be a contributor, you could be a fellow, you can be a community leader, you could do whatever it is that makes your entrepreneurial life more fulfilled, right? It's flexible work, however you want it, non-traditional W-2 or contract. Correct? So I think those are the two main takeaways I love the audience to remember from what we just talked about. Okay, let's move on to actually Web3 projects. So I would like to ask the panelists, like you talked about who you're hiring for. Are there main initiatives that you want to highlight for your network roadmap this year into next year that you want folks here to know about, to get excited about? How will you best support them joining the ecosystem? Either they've been in Web3 or they're new to Web3. Jack O'Halloran.
All right, great. We'll keep the order. All right, so the big announcements for Skale is that we just launched Skale V2, or we're calling it the Scaleverse. So before this, every Skale chain was almost like the siloed island that connected to the Ethereum mainnet. And anytime a game, for example, would want to talk to an exchange, it had to go to Ethereum, and the user have to go to Ethereum and come back. And what that is, it created user experience friction. So now, as of this week, Skale V2 is here, and all these chains can talk, and that's where Skale transforms from this, what I would call a siloed layer 2 to a modular layer 1 hybrid, where it's a layer 2, layer 1 combination. Anyways, what that means is we have major growth underway. And we have a $100 million ecosystem grant program. And, we will be pushing out jobs soon, looking for people to support in terms of helping write content, helping with the UX component, helping in other ways, and excited to leverage that grant program within Braintrust. Also, I just want to say there are about 100 partners launching on Skale. And one thing we're going to leverage this fund for is to also fund projects to help our partners hire talent. And so you'll see things fold under Skale that are even connected to other projects going live on Skale. Thanks.
Well said, Jack. I would say a big focus, particularly around projects within the ConsenSys ecosystem, is definitely going to be MetaMask. It's a widely adopted, globally recognized wallet, and we are continuing to trying to expand on its capabilities, on how it operates from the developer all the way to the user. So there's a lot of different integration points that we can kind of get into, especially from an agnostic perspective on the protocol layer, as well as we are working with L2s to help kind of scale some of the things that might be problematic in terms of going prime time. We had the big merge coming up, and so that's certainly going to be a huge emphasis on what we can do in our roadmap around projects. And I think the exciting stuff with what ConsenSys is moving towards is another thing that we've seen is if we want to contribute to the ecosystem, how can we do that if we're fully engaged in our own day-to-day job? I mean, it's kind of it feels a little bit hypocritical to preach that. And so we are often encouraging and incorporating, measures to contribute towards DAOs, for example. I think that would always encourage folks to get involved in that. It helps with resumes, obviously, when we can see your contributions. We love to see, especially if you on the side have deployed things on mainnet, love to see that. Those are ways that show that you are very much active and involved in, coming into the fold of ConsenSys. Most of our roles are full-time, but we are exploring ideas around bounties. I think that would be, incumbent on us, as it is a very much an important aspect of Web3, especially given that a lot of folks are pursuing that direction. They don't always want full-time positions. And so I think we want to be aware of that to help augment some of our projects. And one of our big projects is with ConsenSys NFT, where we acquired Tram. And so they are doing some pretty cool stuff around gaming, art, some of the other digital assets that we've been promoting. And it's certainly a much bigger use case than just digital art, in my opinion. But nonetheless, there's lots of opportunities to help scale that. And we like to see ourselves as, when you work with us, we're more of a supporting cast to our friends of Skale and Harmony, because we often want to continue to build and support them, because we're all in this together and we're trying to grow We're trying to grow in diversity, which is super important to us. DEI has been a very high emphasis. We want to change, I guess, the paradigm in which a typical traditional technology company might look like from an employee's perspective. So for us to be able to have control over that now, before we get too big, where it gets a little bit more difficult, is of most utter importance to us. So I think we're always going to keep that as a high priority. And I think these are this Braintrust and what they're doing is really helping with that kind of growth and initiative.
Thanks, Scott. So as I mentioned earlier, Harmony is a layer 1 blockchain where it's improved quite a bit already. It's very similar to Ethereum. So anybody that can code in Solidity, or if you know JavaScript, learning Solidity is not that hard. By the way, go to cryptozombies.io if you want to learn Solidity. It's a very fun way of learning it. Anyhow, back to Harmony. It's we're building things that are quite advanced. It's already very affordable to run. Every transaction is a fraction of a penny, and it's very fast. Every 2 seconds, the block is what they call finalized, so there's 2-second finality, and it's scalable where it's multi-sharded. So what else is there to improve on the blockchain protocol? Quite a bit. Even today, if you follow Ethereum, it hasn't quite completed the sharding, or is still working on the sharding protocol. And then cross-shard transactions, meaning a shard is what you can think of as like a lanes of a highway, right? A blockchain could have just one lane and it could get congested. And Harmony has 4 lanes right now, 4 shards. And Ethereum is also building the same thing. And to move your transactions from a second lane to the third lane right now is really, really difficult. The reason is because of security. So that's why the advancement at the protocol layer is still very critical. And we're looking for, we have projects on that to bring in partners to help us research on that. If anybody knows of any teams or are already building things on the protocol layer, we're interested to talking to you. And we're also building bridges across multiple chains. So if you follow the crypto space, you might know things around like Cosmos or Terra ecosystem. In the Tendermint space, they have a different protocol, ConsenSys. It's very difficult to cross over to different chains. Same with Ethereum virtual machine compatible ones, or EVM compatible chains are very easy to talk to one another, from Polygon, Phantom, Avalanche, and whatnot. And then there are other chains like Icon and Bitcoin, of course, where smart contracts are not fully developed yet, but still bridging is really, really important. So that's another project that we're fully into. That we are, our plans are to be the bridge across all chains, and hopefully one day to scale. So we'll see what happens there. The efforts that we have is around funding for applications or decentralized applications, what we call dApps. So the dApps that we're focused on are starting with game development, inspired by Axie Infinity's play to earn model. We have seen that there is a perfect fit in Harmony, where Harmony is a fast and affordable chain to run, and we are a layer 1 chain that is multi-sharded, so it scales pretty well. And most importantly, we have a community that is ready for to absorb and to play these games. So we went in and did our research. We went to the Game Developer Conference in San Francisco recently, or GDC. It's one of the biggest game conferences in the world, and did our research and have are doubling down on game development. So if you're building any games that would want to take advantage of the new Web3 economy, what a Web3 economy means that you can finally own what you actually build, or what you actually contribute into a game. Let's say you play Minecraft, you set up your own world, and that world is actually yours. You can rent it out, or you can loan it out to friends, or you can actually make some revenue out of that. out of fun, just playing for fun, and then you're sharing what you actually own, and actually bringing that across to different chains in the future if possible. So right now, if you play a game in Fortnite, you buy a new skin, that skin stays in Fortnite, and then you don't really own it. You just buy it and it's there. But with Web3, if you look into it and research into it further, it's an ownership economy. And maybe we should step back a little bit and define what Web3 is. Web1 is our CTO, RJ, said it really well. Web1 is a read-only interface where you go to yahoo.com, it's a directory, you just read from there and you can't do anything else. Web2 is a read and write economy where you can read from it and then you can enter content like a Facebook post or an Uber, you can interact with it and whatnot. Web3 is a read, write, and own. You're finally owning the things through non-custodial ways where you have a wallet and you're owning some NFTs or owning some things that you developed. So it's a very exciting space. If you don't know it much, I would really encourage you to read into it.
Thank you so much, Jack, and thank you so much, panelists. I can feel the energy, the momentum. I mean, this session is called From Web 2 to Web 3. Everyone is breaking down doors, and the doors are actually already open. We just have to find them, right? So many opportunities out there, and it's such an honor to be with thought leaders in this space today, to be able to chat with you. There's so many more questions that we have. We'd love to follow up. Audiences, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you so much for being with us. Your insights are invaluable, and we hope to see the community inspired to contribute to your projects, Scale, Harmony, ConsenSys. Everyone check them out, join their Discord, follow their Twitter, go to their website, apply on Braintrust. Want to see you involved. Next up, we have Aidan from Snowfork, a Web3 agency who's been contributing to the Braintrust network for a long time. Aidan's going to share with us his journey into Web3 and the highly acclaimed Braintrust fee converter. Aidan, take us away.
Cool. Hey, everyone. I'm Aidan. I work at a Web3 agency called Snowfork, where we help people build Web3 products, and we have a collection of product managers and developers that build Web3 products. And we're also part of the Braintrust network, and we contribute to various projects in the Braintrust network, and our team members are building stuff in the network. And so my story is I worked as an independent developer for a few years, and I got into Web3 via the Ethereum community initially. And so started Snowfork as a Web3 agency because I saw a lot of opportunity and a lot of cool things being built that I wanted to contribute to. And so we initially got introduced to Braintrust a while back, and we helped build out some of Braintrust's initial blockchain tech as part of their network and part of their community. And yeah, it's been awesome kind of getting involved in Web3 community and seeing the opportunity there. And definitely reach out if you're a developer looking to get involved in Web3 or contribute to Braintrust. Happy to kind of share more of our story. So yeah, do you want to go into the next slide? Cool. So I can tell a bit about the Braintrust fee converter. It was mentioned in the last talk as this project that emerged from the Braintrust community. And so the motivation behind it came through seeing Braintrust as this new emerging crypto network and wanting it to kind of find ways to produce value. And so crypto networks in general, they need sustainable ways of creating value and then capturing value to their token. And breaking out of speculation and growth is an important challenge for all growing crypto networks, where often they start with a growth first mindset, but want to eventually become an independent economic network that can act as its own economy. And so the Braintrust fee converter is the first piece that the community ignited to help the Braintrust network grow into that kind of sustainable value creation. And so essentially what it is it's a mechanism for the different nodes in the Braintrust network to inject a portion of their profits into the Braintrust economy. You can see a little screenshot on the right. There's a website essentially with a UI where nodes go to the UI, they can use the UI to submit some of their profits as portion of profits that go and get injected into the network. And so how it works is A particular node goes to the UI, they submit a payment through the UI into the Braintrust network. And so this payment then gets routed through an on-chain smart contract that's built with an Ethereum smart contract that connects to Uniswap, which Uniswap is like a platform for swapping tokens. And through this front end, the node injects some of its USDC profits. Those profits get converted into the Braintrust token and sent to the Braintrust treasury to become part of like the treasury that the network controls. And so this has as a force for like buying back tokens from the public market and putting those tokens back into the Braintrust treasury. And so yeah, it's kind of a fairly simple, small project, but it's opening up a gateway and a door for the Braintrust economy to start to continually create value for its token holders and its participants. You can go to the next slide. And so, yeah, we can talk about impacts for the fee converter. Essentially, now we have this like fundamental growth and value capture mechanism for the Braintrust economy. And as nodes use this, it slowly involves ownership returning back to the Braintrust treasury, because remember, the funds, there's two aspects to the funds. One is that they're being used to buy the Braintrust token as almost like a buyback mechanism, but they're also the token themselves are then being sent to the treasury, and the treasury is growing its own ownership of the economy once again. And I mentioned it's a small kind of initial simple project, but one thing you like may realize as you start to contribute to Web3, or if you're thinking about getting involved, is like small simple pieces are often really impactful, because smart contract development is like a direct way to make an impact on a project and to get involved in Web3. Web3 is a nascent new space which is eager for contributors, and simple solutions can often be kind of quite powerful. And so often, like as a developer, you can have an outsized impact working with Web3 projects. And you can see this now with the Braintrust fee converter, where it's brought in like 1.3 mil USD, which has been converted into 380,000 Braintrust, which is flowing into the treasury. And so definitely encourage like all developers who are interested or curious to get involved and think about like how you can make an impact, even with like, even as a new developer, we consistently see projects that are coming from new developers in the community that are making an impact and like becoming successful. And yeah, that's it. If you're interested in finding out more, feel free to reach out to me or Snowfork, and start contributing to Web3 development through Braintrust. You're muted, by the way.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Aidan, for sharing your Web3 story and for sharing more about the Braintrust fee converter.
Awesome, thanks.
And now we'll hear from Karen to share her story on why she left the corporate world to build Web3. Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Go ahead and share an introduction on why you decided to leave Accenture.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet you all. Thanks for joining us today. So I was working at Accenture for 5 years prior to moving to Build Web3 full-time. In the time that I was there, I guess I convinced myself that this was the best job that I would ever have, because it had a lot of autonomy, like a lot of benefits, and it was really well paid. But eventually, I suppose like the veneer wore off, and I could start to see that despite being constantly promoted, I'd been bored for a really long time, and the values that I had around freedom and autonomy and the ability to modularly compose my work was something that I could never have in the job that I had there. And that's sort of why I moved into the Web3 world.
And tell us more about what you did for Braintrust. How were you a Braintrust contributor?
Sure. So I work for Crypto Culture and Society as vibes curator, which essentially just means that I think about how we build community and strategize around like good connections. So Crypto Culture and Society is a learning DAO building liberal arts on crypto. And one of the things we did was one of our arms won a Braintrust grant to create a project which looked at learning in the Web3 economy. So we built out a 4-week cohort-based course for people who are interested in understanding how they could make a career in that space.
Awesome. Thank you for contributing as a Braintrust Web3 educator. So what advice do you have for others thinking about making a career shift or transitioning into Web3?
Yeah, so I guess the main thing is to know that it's not a linear path, right? So I sort of fell into a space where I could bring a lot of things that I'd known from before, strategy, product, operations, and ability to execute. But the space is so nascent and has so many disciplines and different ways of thinking about it. So it's a lot around, seeking what you're interested in, just jumping to Discords, exploring. And then one other thing I would say is definitely make a Twitter account and start following crypto Twitter.
Awesome. And I'm going to drop your article in the chat for others to read. Will you quickly share what that's about?
Yeah, sure. So I wrote an article for the protocol Mirror, which is essentially the Substack equivalent of Web3. It's called My Inner Critic Follows Me into Web3. I think that not enough people talk about the daunting nature of entering a new territory, especially one that's so filled with rug pulls and scams and all these phishing attacks and more of it getting so sophisticated. So I wanted just to highlight that, even as someone who was prior in a very technical field in the ethics of AI, when I entered Web3 and started my new role, there was just all these potholes. And so many times I said to myself, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be able to make it because all these people are university dropouts and I felt like I missed the boat. So just really wanted to share that sometimes those mental health aspects that you may feel you're not alone in it, and I'm I've picked up all the things and I'm really understanding the space and really moving with it now. So if you feel that way, it's totally normal. It's part of the process. You're drinking from a fire hose. It's a very fast moving space, but it's not a reason not to get involved. It's been amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen.
No worries.
Well, we are right at time. So what an amazing hour we've spent together today. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us. We have heard some great insights from direct hiring managers, as well as some people who have made the switch. Karen, I can't wait to read your article. And quick plug, that Web3 cohort course is coming to Braintrust Academy very soon. So if you're interested in learning more about that, make sure you join Braintrust today to get access to Braintrust Academy. And then as we wrap up here, I do want to ask everybody to share what your next step is going to be to land your dream job in Web3. Drop a comment right now with the hashtag #OwnIt. Would love to see your takeaways, what you plan on doing this afternoon, this weekend, next week to find your next role. Thank you all so much for joining us. We can't wait to see you again next quarter for our next Braintrust Live.